Dr. Amanda Clark stared at the data on her screen for the third time that morning and still could not believe what she was seeing. The numbers made no sense at all, and that bothered her more than she wanted to admit. She had been studying human genetics for 15 years aboard the research vessel New Horizon and had never seen anything like this before in her entire career. The genetic records showed something that should have been impossible according to everything humanity knew about. Population growth and basic biology. Earth should have had over 40 billion people by now, but instead they barely had 8 billion souls scattered across their home planet and various colonies throughout the solar system. Amanda rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the data again, hoping she had made some kind of mistake in her calculations, but the numbers remained stubbornly the same. Human birth rates had been declining for 300 years in ways that seemed natural on the surface, but became deeply suspicious when examined with the right mathematical tools and genetic analysis software. Lieutenant Commander Jake Murphy walked into her laboratory carrying 2 cups of coffee and immediately noticed the worried expression on her face. Jake had been her research partner for 5 years now, and he could read her moods better than most people could read simple instruction manuals. "You look like someone just told you that gravity stopped working," Jake said as he handed her one of the steaming cups and sat down in the chair next to her workstation. Amanda accepted the coffee gratefully and turned her monitor so Jake could see what had been keeping her awake for the past 3 nights running. She pointed at the genetic timeline that stretched across her screen showing human population data going back to the year 2089. "Look at this pattern, Jake, and tell me what you see, because I think I might be losing my mind," Amanda said while scrolling through decades of carefully collected genetic samples and birth records from across human space. Jake studied the information for several long minutes while sipping his coffee and occasionally asking Amanda to zoom in on particular sections of the data. His expression grew more serious with each passing moment as he began to understand what Amanda had discovered. "This looks like someone has been deliberately targeting human reproductive systems," Jake said quietly, as if speaking the words too loudly might make them somehow more real and more terrible. Amanda nodded grimly and pulled up another set of data that showed the genetic markers she had been tracking for weeks. The patterns were too precise and too consistent to be natural. Evolution, or random genetic drift, working its slow magic on the human species. The fertility rates began declining exactly 300 years ago, and the decline has been mathematically perfect ever since then, Amanda explained while highlighting the relevant sections of her research. "Natural population changes do not work this way, Jake, because biology is messy and unpredictable, but this data shows surgical precision." Jake leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a moment as the implications of Amanda's discovery began to sink into his mind. If someone had been deliberately attacking human fertility, then it meant that humanity was under assault and had been for 3 centuries without anyone realizing what was happening. "We need to dig deeper into the historical records and see if we can find any evidence of outside interference," Jake said, as he stood up and began pacing around the small laboratory. "There has to be something in the old communications logs or diplomatic files that might explain how this started." Amanda saved her current work and began accessing the New Horizons' extensive database of historical documents and archived communications from the early days of human space exploration. The 2 researchers worked in focused silence for hours as they searched through mountains of data, looking for anything that might explain the mysterious decline in human fertility. Late that evening, Jake found something that made his blood run cold and his hands shake as he called Amanda over to his workstation. Hidden deep in a collection of encrypted communications from the year 2087 was a series of alien transmissions that had been intercepted by early human monitoring stations. The transmissions were in an unknown language, but the attached translation software had partially decoded several key phrases that painted a terrifying picture of deliberate genocide disguised as natural selection. Words like quiet solution and biological intervention appeared repeatedly throughout the intercepted messages. Amanda read through the translated fragments with growing horror as she realized that some alien species had been planning humanity's extinction for over 300 years. The plan had been elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its effectiveness because it made human extinction look completely natural to anyone not specifically looking for signs of interference. "They wanted to make us disappear without anyone ever knowing we had been murdered," Amanda whispered as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear to both researchers. Jake began copying all of their research onto secure storage devices while Amanda started composing an urgent message to send to Earth and the various human colonies scattered throughout the solar system. Humanity needed to know that they were under attack and had been slowly dying for 3 centuries while their enemies waited patiently for the last human to breathe their final breath. The war for human survival was about to begin, and most people did not even know they were already soldiers in a battle that had been raging since before their great-grandparents were born. Captain Ryan Torres received the encrypted message from Dr. Amanda Clark, while his ship Defiance was drifting silently in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Ryan had been expecting news like this for 20 years, but actually reading the proof of alien genocide still hit him like a physical blow to his stomach. Ryan had spent most of his adult life commanding a small fleet of independent ships that operated outside the official Earth government because he suspected that something was terribly wrong with humanity's declining population. The official explanations had never made sense to him, and now he finally understood why his instincts had been screaming warnings for so many years. Marine Sergeant Lisa Grant was cleaning her rifle in the ship's armory when Ryan called an emergency meeting for all crew members. Lisa had joined Ryan's organization 3 years ago after her younger brother Danny had died from what doctors called a rare genetic condition that prevented him from having children. Lisa had always suspected that Danny's condition was not as rare as the doctors claimed because she had met dozens of other families with similar stories during her travels across human space. Young men and women who should have been starting families were instead dying from mysterious illnesses that seemed to target their reproductive systems with surgical precision. Listen up, everyone, because what I am about to tell you is going to change everything we thought we knew about our situation, Ryan announced to the 30 crew members gathered in the ship's main meeting room. Ryan activated the main display screen and showed them the genetic data that Amanda and Jake had discovered along with the translated alien communications that revealed the true scope of the conspiracy against humanity. The room fell completely silent as the crew absorbed the devastating information. Dr. Ben Parker stood up from his seat in the back row and cleared his throat before speaking to the assembled group. Ben had been working in hidden laboratories for the past 10 years trying to understand why so many humans were suffering from unexplained fertility problems. I have been studying these same genetic patterns in my research, and I believe I may have found a way to reverse some of the damage that has been done to our species, Ben announced while pulling up his own data on a portable computer. Ben explained that the alien virus had been designed to work slowly over many generations so that humanity would not notice the decline until it was too late to mount any kind of effective resistance. However, the same slow-acting nature of the weapon also meant that the genetic damage could potentially be repaired if they understood exactly how the virus worked. The aliens made one critical mistake in their biological weapon design, Ben continued as he showed the crew his latest research findings. They assumed that human genetics would remain static over time, but our species has always been remarkably adaptable to changing conditions. Lisa raised her hand and asked the question that was on everyone's mind. How long do we have before the damage becomes irreversible and humanity goes extinct? Ben looked at his data for a moment before answering with the grim truth that he had been carrying alone for months. Based on current fertility rates, we have maybe 50 years before human births drop below replacement levels, and another 100 years after that before the last human dies of old age. The weight of that timeline settled over the room like a heavy blanket, as everyone realized that they were potentially looking at the last few generations of human existence unless something dramatic changed very quickly. Ryan stood up and began, outlining the plan that he had been developing in secret for years in case this day ever came. His network of independent ships had been collecting genetic samples and building hidden research facilities throughout the outer solar system where they could work without interference from Earth's compromised government. We are going to fight back against this genocide, and we are going to win because humans have one advantage that these aliens never counted on, Ryan declared with fierce determination burning in his eyes. Kate Phillips asked what advantage Ryan was talking about because from where she was sitting, it looked like humanity was losing a war. They did not even know they were fighting until today. Ryan smiled grimly and pulled up star charts showing the locations of various alien monitoring stations that had been detected by human deep space sensors over the past century. Most government officials had assumed these were simply scientific observation posts, but Ryan now understood their true purpose. The aliens have been watching us for 300 years to make sure their biological weapon was working as planned, Ryan explained, while highlighting the alien positions throughout human space. That means they have been collecting massive amounts of data about how humans think and fight and adapt to threats. Lisa began to understand where Ryan was going with his reasoning, and she felt a cold smile spreading across her face as the implications became clear to her tactical mind. They know everything about us, but we have been completely invisible to them, Lisa said, as she realized the strategic advantage that Ryan had identified. Ryan nodded and activated a new display showing the secret fleet that he had been building for 20 years. Over 40 ships of various sizes were hidden throughout the asteroid belt and outer planets crewed by humans who had always suspected that something was wrong with the official story. The aliens think they are dealing with 8 billion humans living on registered worlds and flying registered ships, Ryan continued as his plan took shape in front of the assembled crew. They have no idea that there are several million of us, operating completely outside their surveillance network. Ben Parker added that his research facilities had not only been working on reversing the genetic damage, but also on understanding how alien technology functioned. His teams had been studying crashed alien probes and communication devices for years. We have learned how to decode their transmissions, and we have even figured out how to jam their sensors, Ben announced with satisfaction. The hunters are about to become the hunted, and they will never see us coming. Ryan looked around the room, at the faces of his crew, and saw the same determination that had kept him fighting for 20 years when everyone else thought he was just another paranoid conspiracy theorist. We are going to save humanity, and we are going to make these aliens regret the day they decided to mess with our species, Ryan declared as the Resistance finally stepped out of the shadows to begin their war for human survival. Engineer Kate Phillips had always been good with computers, but she discovered that alien technology responded to her touch in ways that seemed almost magical. 6 months after the Resistance revealed itself, Kate was sitting in front of a captured Valdari control console trying to understand why the alien systems seemed to recognize her thoughts before she even finished typing commands. The breakthrough came when Kate stopped trying to use the alien interface the way it was designed and instead approached it like she was solving a puzzle that wanted to be solved. Human creativity and intuition allowed her to bypass security protocols that should have taken months to crack. "This is impossible," Dr. Ben Parker muttered as he watched Kate navigate through classified Valdari databases like she was browsing through her personal files. "Their security systems are supposed to be unbreakable by any known technology," Kate looked up from the alien console with excitement burning in her eyes as she realized what was happening. "I think the genetic changes they made to us accidentally gave humans the ability to interface directly with their technology," she explained while pulling up schematics for Valdari weapons and ship designs. Commander Alex Stone had been planning the first major attack against a Valdari monitoring station orbiting Jupiter for weeks, but Kate's discovery changed everything about their tactical situation. Instead of trying to destroy the alien facility, they could potentially capture it intact and learn everything the Valdari knew about human space. How many people can do what Kate is doing? Alex asked Dr. Ben Parker as they watched Kate download centuries of Valdari surveillance data with nothing more than her bare hands touching the alien controls. Ben ran quick genetic tests on 30 volunteers from the Resistance fleet and discovered that nearly 70% of them showed the same enhanced neural patterns that allowed Kate to interface with alien systems. The Valdari virus had been trying to sterilize humanity, but it had also accidentally enhanced human brain chemistry in unexpected ways. Lisa Grant volunteered to test the new abilities during a raid on a smaller Valdari outpost near Saturn. She had never considered herself particularly technical, but when she placed her hands on an alien weapon control system, the interface responded to her thoughts faster than any human technology she had ever used. The weapon systems are actually more responsive than our own equipment, Lisa reported over the radio as she used captured Valdari guns to destroy 3 alien patrol ships with surgical precision. It feels like the technology wants to work for us. Dr. Patricia White led a team of engineers in studying the captured alien equipment and discovered that Valdari technology was designed to be operated by multiple species within their empire. The systems were built to adapt to different types of alien brain patterns, but human neural flexibility exceeded anything the Valdari had encountered before. We are not just compatible with their technology, Patricia explained to a gathering of Resistance leaders. We are actually better at using it than they are because human brains can process multiple types of signals simultaneously. The Valdari had spent centuries studying human psychology and physiology to create the perfect biological weapon, but all that research had inadvertently given humans the keys to understanding Valdari civilization. Every strength the aliens thought they had identified in their enemies had become a weakness that humans could exploit. Captain Ryan Torres authorized full-scale raids against Valdari installations throughout the outer solar system as resistance. Forces used captured alien ships to attack targets that had been considered untouchable just months earlier. Human pilots found that Valdari vessels responded to their commands with an eagerness that bordered on enthusiasm. Their ships actually fly better for us than they do for them, reported pilot Nicole Adams after her first successful mission in a captured Valdari fighter. The navigation systems seem to understand what I want to do before I finish giving the commands. The Valdari monitoring stations had been observing human space for 300 years, but they had never been designed to defend against attacks by humans using Valdari technology. Alien commanders found themselves facing tactical situations that their training had never prepared them for, as human creativity turned their own weapons against them. Engineer Tom Bradley discovered that human modifications to Valdari ship designs actually improved performance beyond original specifications. Human problem-solving approaches allowed them to optimize alien technology in ways that the original designers had never considered. We are taking their tools and making them better, Tom explained while showing off a hybrid human Valdari fighter that could outmaneuver anything in the alien fleet. They built these ships to be operated by predictable minds, but human unpredictability gives us tactical advantages they cannot counter. Commander Alex Stone led the assault on the Jupiter monitoring station with a fleet of captured and modified Valdari ships crewed by humans who had learned to think like their technology. The battle lasted less than an hour as human creativity overwhelmed alien defensive systems that had been designed to repel conventional attacks. The captured station contained detailed records of Valdari plans for the final phase of human extinction, along with complete technical specifications for their entire fleet. Dr. Amanda Clark studied the alien files and realized that the Valdari had been preparing to begin open military operations against the remaining human colonies within the next 10 years. They were planning to finish what the virus started, Amanda reported to the Resistance leadership. Complete extermination of every human in the galaxy, followed by colonization of our worlds. Kate Phillips used her enhanced interface abilities to access the station's communication systems and discovered something that changed the entire nature of their conflict with the Valdari Empire. The aliens had been reporting to their superiors that the biological weapon was working perfectly and that humanity would be extinct within 50 years, according to their projections. "They have no idea that we know about the virus or that we are fighting back," Kate announced with a predatory smile spreading across her face. "As far as the Valdari leadership knows, their plan is proceeding exactly on schedule." Ryan Torres realized that they had stumbled onto the perfect opportunity to turn the tables on an enemy that had been hunting humanity for 3 centuries. The Valdari expected to face a dying civilization that was slowly fading away, but instead, they were about to encounter humans who had adapted their own technology and turned it into weapons of liberation. "We are going to use their own communication networks to coordinate strikes against every Valdari facility in human space," Ryan declared as the Resistance prepared to take their hidden war into the open. They wanted to erase humanity from existence, but they are about to discover that we do not go quietly into extinction. The humans had learned to fight with Valdari weapons and fly Valdari ships, but more importantly, they had learned to think in ways that their enemies could not predict or counter, and that advantage was about to change the course of galactic history. Supreme Commander Zekthul of the Valdari High Command stared at the emergency reports flooding in from monitoring stations throughout human space and felt something that his species had not experienced in over 1,000 years of galactic dominance. For the first time in his long career, Zekthul was afraid of an enemy that he did not understand. The humans were supposed to be a dying species slowly fading into extinction, but instead, they were attacking Valdari installations with captured, alien technology and winning battles that should have been impossible. Zekthul had spent 3 centuries carefully implementing the biological weapon that was meant to quietly erase humanity from the galaxy. "How are they using our technology?" Zekthul demanded from his science advisors during an emergency session of the Valdari Ruling Council. "Our security protocols should prevent any non-Valdari species from accessing our systems." Chief Scientist Veltar reviewed the battle reports with growing confusion as she tried to understand how humans had not only survived their biological weapon, but had somehow turned Valdari technology against its creators. The data made no sense according to everything the Valdari knew about human limitations. "The humans appear to have developed enhanced neural patterns that allow them to interface directly with our control systems," Veltar reported with obvious disbelief in her voice. "They are operating our equipment more efficiently than our own trained personnel." Zekthul felt his carefully planned genocide unraveling as reports continued to arrive from across human space. Monitoring stations that had operated undetected for centuries were being captured or destroyed by humans flying Valdari ships and using Valdari weapons with impossible skill and creativity. Colonel Sam Hughes led covert human operations deep into Valdari territory using captured alien transport ships that allowed his teams to move through enemy space without detection. Sam had discovered that many species within the Valdari Empire were not willing participants in the genocide against humanity. The Kalari people had been conquered by the Valdari 200 years ago and pressed into service as engineers and technicians for the alien war machine. When Sam's team made contact with Kalari workers on a Valdari shipyard facility, they found allies who were eager to strike back against their oppressors. "We have been waiting for someone to challenge Valdari dominance," explained Kalari engineer Thexon during a secret meeting in the shipyard's maintenance tunnels. "Your species may be the first with the ability to actually defeat them in open combat." Sam learned that the Valdari Empire consisted of 12 conquered species who provided labor and resources while the Valdari themselves maintained military and political control. Most of the Empire's subject peoples had been forced to participate in the genocide against humanity, against their own moral convictions. Dr. Ben Parker's research teams made contact with Selvani medical personnel who had been forced to help develop the biological weapon used against humanity. The Selvani were natural healers who had been horrified by their role in the slow extinction of an entire species. We kept detailed records of everything we were forced to do in hopes that someday we could find a way to undo the damage, revealed Selvani Dr. Kethra during a clandestine meeting on a medical research station. We can help you reverse the genetic modifications and restore human fertility. The Valdari High Command realized that their empire was beginning to fracture as subject species made contact with human resistance forces. Zekthul ordered immediate military action to crush the human uprising before it could inspire rebellion throughout Valdari territory. Deploy the planet killer device to the human home system, Zekthul commanded during an emergency war council meeting. We will destroy their entire civilization in one decisive strike and end this threat permanently. The Valdari Planet Killer was a massive weapon platform capable of cracking planetary crusts and rendering entire worlds uninhabitable. The device had been used twice before to eliminate species that had resisted Valdari conquest, and it had never failed to achieve complete extermination. Pilot Nicole Adams received urgent intelligence about the Planet Killer from Kalari allies who had access to Valdari military communications. The weapon was already moving toward Earth and would arrive within 6 months unless someone found a way to stop it. We need to capture that weapon and turn it against the Valdari homeworld, declared Captain Ryan Torres during an emergency meeting of resistance leaders. It is the only way to force them into negotiations before they destroy everything we are fighting to protect. Nicole volunteered to lead a desperate mission to intercept the Planet Killer using a captured Valdari dreadnought that had been modified by human engineers. The plan required her to get close enough to the massive weapon to board it and somehow take control of systems designed by the most paranoid species in the galaxy. Kate Phillips worked for 72 hours straight to understand the Planet Killer's control systems, using captured Valdari technical manuals and her enhanced ability to interface with alien technology. The weapon security protocols were far more complex than anything humans had encountered before. The Planet Killer is designed to be operated by a minimum crew of 500 Valdari technicians, Kate reported with exhaustion clear in her voice. I think I can modify the control systems to work with a human crew of 50, but it will require direct neural interface with the main computer. Nicole's mission launched just as Valdari reinforcement fleets began arriving in human space to support the Planet Killer assault. The timing was critical, because once the weapon reached Earth's solar system, it would be protected by enough firepower to make any rescue attempt suicidal. The captured Valdari dreadnought approached the Planet Killer while broadcasting stolen identification codes that allowed them to get within boarding range before the massive weapons crew realized they were under attack. Nicole's team fought their way through corridors designed for beings twice their size, while Kate raced to reach the main control center. The weapon is already targeting Earth and the firing sequence has begun, Kate announced over the radio as she placed her hands on the Planet Killer's primary control interface. I can stop the attack, but redirecting the weapon toward the Valdari homeworld will require me to maintain direct neural contact until the new target is locked. Nicole fought off Valdari security forces while Kate struggled to maintain her connection with alien technology that was actively trying to reject human control. The Planet Killer's massive weapons began charging for a shot that would either save humanity or doom them, depending on Kate's ability to override 3 centuries of Valdari engineering. The weapon fired toward the Valdari homeworld with enough destructive power to crack continents and boil oceans. Zekthul received the targeting information just minutes before impact and realized that his own genocide weapon was about to destroy everything the Valdari Empire had built over 1,000 years of conquest. The humans have turned our ultimate weapon against us, Zekthul transmitted to his scattered fleet commanders as evacuation alarms began sounding across the Valdari homeworld. Cease all offensive operations and begin immediate withdrawal from human space. The planet killer hung in space between the human and Valdari home systems, like a terrible reminder of what both species could do to each other if their conflict escalated beyond all reason and sanity. Captain Tyler Brooks stood on the bridge of the massive human fleet that had assembled in the outer solar system and marveled at how much had changed in just 2 years since the Resistance revealed itself to the galaxy. The fleet consisted of over 300 ships, including captured Valdari vessels and newly constructed hybrid designs that combined human creativity with alien technology. The Valdari homeworld evacuation had created a power vacuum throughout their empire as subject. Species realized that their oppressors were not invincible after all. Reports were flooding in from across Valdari space as conquered peoples began rising up against their alien masters. Dr. Rachel Martinez had made the most important discovery in human history when she analyzed the genetic changes caused by the Valdari biological weapon. The virus that was supposed to slowly sterilize humanity had instead unlocked dormant genes that granted enhanced longevity and disease resistance to those who survived the infection. The Valdari accidentally evolved us into something stronger than baseline humanity, Rachel explained to a gathering of resistance leaders and allied alien representatives. Our enhanced neural patterns and improved immune systems make us ideal candidates for leadership roles in a post-Valdari galaxy. The irony was not lost on anyone that the weapon designed to destroy humanity had instead prepared them to become the dominant species in their region of space. Human volunteers were living longer and thinking more clearly than any previous generation while maintaining their species' natural adaptability and creativity. Ambassador Laura Thompson led diplomatic missions to contact the various species that had been forced to serve the Valdari Empire against their will. Unlike their former masters, humans offered genuine partnership and mutual benefit rather than conquest and domination. The Kalari people were the first to formally request membership in what became known as the Human Alliance. Their engineering expertise combined with human innovation produced technological advances that neither species could have achieved alone. Humans fight to liberate rather than conquer, observed Kalari Representative Thexan during the founding ceremony of the Human Alliance. This is the first galactic government in our recorded history that operates on principles of voluntary cooperation. Captain Maria Rodriguez commanded joint human-alien crews as the Alliance fleet liberated world after world from Valdari control. The former subject species fought alongside their human allies with enthusiasm that came from centuries of suppressed anger against their oppressors. The Selvani Medical Corps worked with Dr. Ben Parker to develop treatments that could reverse the genetic damage inflicted by Valdari biological weapons. Their healing technology, combined with human adaptability, created medical advances that benefited every species in the growing alliance. We are not just treating the symptoms of Valdari oppression, explained Selvani Dr. Kethra as she worked, alongside human researchers. We are building a foundation for true galactic civilization based on mutual respect and shared knowledge. The Naraki warrior clans had been forced to serve as shock troops for Valdari military operations, but they eagerly joined human forces when they realized that the Alliance fought to protect the innocent rather than simply to expand territory. Their combat experience proved invaluable in training human soldiers for the final campaigns against remaining Valdari strongholds. Colonel Sam Hughes led Alliance Special Forces in operations to free prisoners from Valdari labor camps and research facilities. Many of the liberated aliens had never seen their home worlds and had been born into slavery under the empire that humans were now systematically dismantling. Every world we liberate adds more people to our cause, Sam reported during a strategy meeting on the Alliance flagship. The Valdari created their own enemies by oppressing so many different species for so long. Engineer Tom Bradley supervised the construction of new Alliance shipyards that combined the best technology from all member species. Human creativity and alien expertise produced vessels that were faster and more powerful than anything the Valdari had ever built. The remaining Valdari military forces found themselves fighting a defensive war against an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with every battle. Alliance fleets used superior technology and superior motivation to defeat Valdari squadrons that had once dominated entire star systems. Supreme Commander Zekthul watched his empire collapse from his command. Ship as reports arrived of another Valdari world falling to Alliance forces. The biological weapon that was supposed to quietly eliminate humanity had instead created the greatest threat to Valdari dominance in 1,000 years. "We have created monsters," Zekthul admitted to his remaining advisors as they reviewed intelligence, reports about human capabilities. "They adapt to everything we do and turn our own weapons against us with skills that exceed our best-trained personnel." Dr. Patricia White led Alliance research teams in studying captured Valdari technology and discovering that their former enemies had actually been holding back technological development throughout their empire. The Valdari had deliberately kept their subject species primitive to prevent rebellion. They were so afraid of being overthrown that they crippled their own civilization, Patricia explained while reviewing Valdari scientific databases. "We are finding technologies that they developed centuries ago, but never implemented because they were afraid their subjects might use them." The Alliance began sharing advanced technology freely among all member species, creating a renaissance of scientific development that transformed entire civilizations within months. Worlds that had been kept in artificial poverty under Valdari rule became centers of learning and innovation. Captain Ryan Torres received surrender offers from dozens of Valdari commanders who realized that continued resistance was hopeless. The Alliance policy of accepting surrenders and offering fair treatment to former enemies encouraged more Valdari forces to abandon their hopeless cause. "We are winning because we offer hope instead of fear," Ryan explained to newly surrendered Valdari officers. "Your empire ruled through terror, but our alliance grows through cooperation, and that makes us stronger than any military force you can deploy against us." The Valdari High Command finally acknowledged defeat when their last major fleet was destroyed in the Battle of Kepler Station. Zekthul himself requested a meeting with Alliance leadership to discuss terms for the surrender of all remaining Valdari forces. "Humanity has proven that they are the superior species," Zekthul transmitted to the Alliance fleet. "We surrender unconditionally and place ourselves at the mercy of beings who have shown more honor in 2 years of war than we showed in 1,000 years of conquest." The galaxy that had been dominated by fear and oppression for centuries was about to experience freedom and cooperation under the leadership of a species that had refused to quietly accept extinction and had instead evolved into something greater than their enemies ever imagined possible. Captain Maria Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the exploration vessel New Earth and watched the sunset over the first human colony established in the Andromeda Galaxy. 5 years had passed since the Valdari surrender, and the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition by the principles of cooperation and voluntary association that defined the human alliance. The New Earth carried a crew of 200 beings representing 15 different species, all working together to explore uncharted regions of space and establish contact with new civilizations. The ship itself was a masterpiece of combined technology featuring human creativity enhanced by Kalari engineering and Selvani medical systems. Dr. Amanda Clark now served as Director of Galactic Health for the Alliance and had established research stations throughout known space to ensure that no species would ever again face extinction through biological warfare. Her original discovery of the Valdari genocide had led to the creation of the most comprehensive disease prevention network in galactic history. The Valdari themselves had been relocated to reservation worlds where they lived under Alliance protection, despite their history of attempted genocide. Human principles of justice focused on rehabilitation rather than revenge, much to the surprise of species who had expected the former oppressors to be exterminated. We judge people by their actions going forward rather than punishing them forever for past mistakes, explained Alliance President Laura Thompson during a diplomatic summit with newly contacted species. The Valdari who choose to live peacefully under Alliance law are welcome to contribute to galactic civilization. The Human Alliance Constitution explicitly forbade genocide and included protections for all sapient species regardless of their past conflicts with Alliance members. It was the first galactic government in recorded history to place such restrictions on its own military forces. Former Supreme Commander Zekthul had become an unlikely advocate for Alliance principles after spending 2 years studying human history and philosophy. His memoirs about the collapse of the Valdari Empire had become required reading in Alliance diplomatic schools. Humans possess a strength that my species never understood, Zekthul wrote in his analysis of the war. They transform every attempt to destroy them into an opportunity to become stronger, and they extend that same resilience to anyone who stands with them. Dr. Ben Parker's medical research had not only reversed the genetic damage caused by Valdari biological weapons, but had also led to breakthrough treatments for dozens of genetic disorders affecting Alliance member species. Human-enhanced genetics, combined with alien medical knowledge, had created a new golden age of health and longevity. Engineer Kate Phillips now directed the Alliance Technology Sharing Initiative, which ensured that scientific advances were distributed freely among all member worlds. The program had eliminated technological inequality between species and created unprecedented cooperation in research and development. When everyone has access to the same tools, they can focus on using them creatively rather than fighting over who gets to control them, Kate explained, while demonstrating new quantum communication systems to recently contacted alien civilizations. Captain Tyler Brooks commanded the Alliance Defense Force, which had grown to include over 10,000 ships, crewed by beings from 43 different species. The force existed primarily to protect member worlds from external threats and to assist in humanitarian missions throughout the galaxy. The Alliance had encountered several hostile civilizations during their expansion into unexplored space, but human diplomatic skills combined with their reputation for honoring agreements had convinced most potential enemies to choose cooperation over conflict. Colonel Sam Hughes led Alliance peacekeeping forces that helped resolve disputes between member species and protected developing civilizations from exploitation by more advanced neighbors. His teams included former Valdari soldiers who had chosen to serve the Alliance rather than retirement on the reservation worlds. We fight to protect the innocent regardless of what species they belong to, Sam declared during a training exercise that included volunteers from across Alliance space. That principle makes us stronger than any military force based on conquest and domination. Dr. Rachel Martinez continued her genetic research and had discovered that the enhanced human traits created by the Valdari virus were beginning to appear naturally in children born to parents from different Alliance species. Interspecies cooperation was literally creating a new form of galactic civilization. We are seeing the emergence of traits that combine the best characteristics of multiple species, Rachel reported to the Alliance Science Council. Future generations will be stronger and more adaptable than anything the galaxy has seen before. The exploration vessel New Earth carried teams of scientists and diplomats whose mission was to make contact with civilizations beyond the current borders of known space. Their first major discovery was a massive alien construct that appeared to be a communication relay designed to send messages across intergalactic distances. Maria Rodriguez authorized the activation of the ancient device and transmitted a message that would travel to distant galaxies carrying news of the human alliance and its principles of cooperation and mutual respect. The message included detailed information about human history and the transformation of their region of space. This is Captain Maria Rodriguez of the Human Alliance vessel New Earth broadcasting to any civilizations that might receive this transmission. Maria announced, as the ancient relay sent their message toward the void between galaxies. We represent a coalition of 43 species united by principles of voluntary cooperation and mutual protection. The message described how humanity had survived an attempted genocide and had transformed that experience into an opportunity to build something greater than any single species could achieve alone. It included invitations for peaceful contact and offers of assistance to any civilizations facing oppression or extinction. We learned that our greatest strength lies not in our ability to conquer, but in our refusal to abandon those who stand with us. Maria continued as the transmission reached across impossible distances toward unknown recipients. No one gets left behind, and everyone deserves the chance to choose their own destiny. The human alliance had grown from a desperate resistance movement into the most powerful and respected government in their galaxy, but they had never forgotten the principles that had guided them through their darkest hours. They fought to liberate, rather than conquer, and they judged people by their future potential, rather than their past mistakes. As the new Earth continued its journey toward unexplored star systems, Maria reflected on how far humanity had come since Dr. Amanda Clark, first, discovered evidence of the Valdari genocide. The species that had been marked for extinction had instead become the foundation for a new type of galactic civilization based on hope rather than fear. The galaxy had learned that humanity's true power lay not in their technology or their military might, but in their unbreakable determination to survive and their willingness to extend that same protection to anyone who needed it. They had tried to erase humanity and failed, but in that failure they had created something far more dangerous, to tyranny everywhere than they could ever have imagined.